Good evening, everyone. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. So we are living in absolute wild times at the moment. So I wanted to do this live after this evening's video because there's quite a few things I wanted to get through, and a lot of things have come out in the media recently. So this video, guys, this live stream, actually, we're going to be talking about some strange things that are happening in the United Kingdom right now, some strange things that are happening in the West in general. We're going to be talking about the laws that have been changing in the United Kingdom. We're going to be talking about how I feel the government are gaslighting us in the United Kingdom. We're going to be talking about the situation in Ukraine. We're going to be talking about how Poland's looking like it's going to be entering that conflict really soon by striking down ballistic missiles over Ukraine. We're also going to be talking about the situation in Iran, how they're looking at, this is going to be a greater regional war. And then we're going to talk about the absolute insanity that's happening right now in the United States, where we have a situation where we have this girl, Carly B, or whatever her name is. Like, this woman, Carly B, I had to do a search on her because I didn't know who she was. I watched some of this lady's, watched her talking. If you guys follow me on X, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I was watching this girl, Cardi B, talk on X. I can quite confidently say she is one of the most vile individuals I've ever had the displeasure to witness in my entire life. Now, has the United States degenerated that much where the leader of the free world thinks that using this girl, Carly B, using her as a prop to prop her up will actually increase her vote share? Now, the two ways you can look at that is if the United States has degenerated into such a situation where Carly B, in fact, Cardi B or something, I don't know. Honestly, it's ridiculous. So we've got this woman, Cardi B, whatever her name is, one of the most vile individuals I've ever heard in my entire life. I heard her speaking in this like Latino American accent, and she's talking about vile stuff. I mean, the two ways you look at this is in the one context, is this, the people that the United States look up to, and those people who look up to Carly B actually get a vote? Wow. And the second aspect to this is, have we degenerated that much that Kamala Harris thinks that inviting this woman up on stage with her is going to actually help her? Guys, right now, I don't see how anyone in the United States can vote for anyone but Donald Trump. I mean, just look at this situation. Now, I've heard horror stories as well from the United States that because of the identification law in the United States, anyone can vote in this election. So I saw something on X where there was a guy from the Netherlands, I think. He was on a holiday in the United States. There was the election. So he just thought he'd go in and cast his vote. Because they're not asking for identification when you go in to vote, anyone can vote. Anyone can vote once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 10, 1,000 times. It wouldn't surprise me if you have people just going through different voting machines and voting for, the same person. Guys, if Donald Trump does not win this election, I would suspect that this is, that this has been rigged. I don't see how anyone but Donald Trump can win, especially as we're moving forward to times of absolute ridiculous global tensions. Can we really expect Kamala Harris to negotiate with Putin? Can we see Kamala Harris negotiating with anybody? I mean, who's she going to send in as a top team? This Carly B, whatever her name is. I mean, the whole situation's catastrophic. When Elon Musk said about the United Kingdom, he said civil war is imminent. I kind of think that's true. Now, when he also got up here and he said, if Donald Trump doesn't win this election, then there won't be another election in the United States. You kind of have to agree with him and understand that what's happening there, that could actually be the case. But anyway, guys, let's go to what's been happening in the United Kingdom. So first of all, I want to go on the share screen and show you something. So I've been trying to find stuff like this and I couldn't find it, but hang on, where are we? Here we are. So I just want to share this with you guys. So this is one of the posts that got somebody sent to jail. So this is one of the X posts that somebody posted. Now, I'm going to caveat this, and I'm going to say I don't know if there's more to this story or not, but what I want to do is I want to just leave this as an open question, because the reality is I don't know the complexities of the legal system. I don't know what's been going off behind the scenes. I don't know what other things have been said, but I just want to focus on this information, and I want to leave this as an open question. So this is, I'll just read them to you guys. Okay. So this was a post in response to the the Southport attacks, the Southport massacre. You know, don't let them gaslight you. Today was a terror attack by a Muslim. He attacked and killed innocent children. Heads must roll for this. I'm livid. Now, that was what he said. Now, you know, as I understand it, this guy's being sent to jail for this and potentially other posts. Now, the next post he's put, I'm telling you, the Welshman who killed those kids was a Muslim. You know, I stand by it. Now, I'm not really, you know, I don't really want to, what I want to go on now, guys, is a lot of people have been sent to jail now and are doing prison time for posting things like this, for saying things like this, that at the time were deemed misinformation. Now, what I want to say is, now if this situation's changed and it actually turns out that, as per, you know, this article here, where are we? As per this article here, look, this is, you know, and I'm just showing you guys what's out in mainstream media. So this guy, you know, as per mainstream media, it's found that he had a document titled Military Studies in the Jihad Against Tyrants, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual. Now, the writing is on the wall there. I would say that this is, like, for me, it's very highly likely that what those guys were saying in the tweets is true. Now, where do we go with this, guys? Now, where do we go as far as a legal system? Where do we go as far as, you know, these guys have been sent to jail now for saying something. And now if it comes out that what these guys have been saying is actually true, where do we go with that? Do we let them out of jail then? Do we say, oh, guys, actually, yeah, my bad. Yeah, what you were saying was right. Now, I'm not saying it was right, and I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm saying it's where do we go now? Because we've sent people to jail for, you know, as I understand it, spreading misinformation. Now that is a precedence, and we do that. That's just what we do. Where do we go from that when that information comes out in the future, that information wasn't misinformation, it was actually true? You know, I suffer from this myself when we put things, especially on the other platform, when we put things out on our, you know, as video messages, and then they get taken down because it's misinformation, but I've actually got inside information, then that information is then deemed, you know, not relevant, so people take the video down, and then it comes out that it's true, then the video gets put back on. So where do we go with this, guys? You know, if people say things, then get them, you know, because they believe it to be true, they then get sent to jail, then the information comes out that they're actually, what they were saying was true. Does that mean now that they're going to get let out of jail, and all the mainstream media outlets, that all the people in the mainstream media who said this was a Welsh Christian boy, does it mean that those guys, they were the real ones who were spreading misinformation? So are we going to see a mass cull of mainstream media, you know, news reporters going to jail? Is that where we are at the moment? Because if we have laws in this country, you know, these laws need to be fractal, and, you know, we can't choose who we apply the law to. The law should apply to everyone. And it just looks like to me that it doesn't, you know, and it seems that my perception of this situation is we're being gaslit. We're being, you know, not only we're being gaslit, we're actually being lied to. You know, we're being lied to. We're being barefaced lied to. But not only that, we can see the truth, because, like I say in all my videos, all the truth is out there. You just need to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. Which brings me on to something equally as ludicrous now. what so Rachel Reeves, she's come out now and she said, she's actually come out publicly and she said she was wrong to say that there'll be no tax raises in the next budget. Well, I'll read you the article and I'll just show you how ridiculous it is. So Rachel Reeves, I was wrong on no big tax raise being needed. So the Chancellor says she didn't know the true picture of the public finances, but no need to increase taxes further after budget. So why are we going to believe her here? So first of all, before the election, she said we're not going to raise taxes. Now she's saying she was wrong to say that. And now she's saying we're not going to raise taxes further. Guys, these people are just blatantly lying to us and we don't have another choice. We don't have there's nowhere we can go in the United Kingdom. Like in the United States, they have they have the Second Amendment that basically protects the people of the United States. It protects the people of the United States from tyranny. So it protects them from a tyrannical government. What protection do we have in the United Kingdom from, to protect us from a tyrannical government? We really don't have any. And that's kind of the outrage of this situation. If our government decide to pass something and it becomes passed as a law, then we have to do that by law. The police will then enforce that. And whether the police like that or not, that is just the situation we've got in the United Kingdom. And it's absolutely wild. There's something brewing in the United Kingdom right now. Anybody who's looking at this situation, everybody's looking at reform and thinking, oh God, yeah, reform are going to be the saviors. They're going to help everybody out. Guys, they're not. You're only going to find one Nigel Farage. You're not going to be able to find 331 Nigel Farages. You're not going to be able to find the amount of people that can get elected that can make a significant change. So that means we've got at least another 10 years before something pops. Now, the problem's going to arise when the normal rank and file people get up off their seats and start taking notice of what's happening. I just wish normal everyday people could actually take notice of what's happening. The draconian laws that were passed in 2020, 2021, 2022, those laws have not been receded. Those laws are still in force. The laws that we have now are probably worse than they've ever been, because not only do we have draconian laws to stop protest, we have draconian laws to close gatherings down. We have draconian laws that can be used as and how the police see fit. But now we have this situation that's, that can send people to jail for, sharing, for misinformation. What is misinformation? Well, it's whatever the government say it is, even if it's the truth. Even if that information is the truth and the government deem it misinformation, guess what, sweet cheeks? You're going to jail. You're going to go in directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go directly to jail. And that's the problem. People feel scared. People are scared. And nothing good happens when people feel scared. Nothing good happens. Because right now, I can pretty much guarantee you've got people plotting and planning and scheming in back rooms, in what was it they used to call it? In open circles, or I can't remember it. There was a word in the in the Civil War where people used to go and they used to gather in back rooms and they used to plot and scheme. I can't remember what it was called. But right now, I can pretty much guarantee people are plotting, people are scheming, and this is going to happen. And the further this goes on, the more of these draconian measures that are put in place, the worse it's going to be. And the state of the United Kingdom at the moment it's just going from bad to worse, guys. It really is. So what's been happening in Europe? What's been happening in Ukraine? Well, what should we start with? Let's start with Poland then. So, and I'll put all these links in the description, guys. But it's come out that I'll just read it you. Poland must shoot down Russian missiles over Ukraine, ministers say. Warsaw must shoot down Russian missiles over Ukraine before they enter its airspace. Foreign Minister Radzislaw Sikorski said on Monday, despite NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg already ruling this out. Now, guys, this is going to happen. Remember this tactical tiptoe that we talk about. The countries move forward slowly and slowly. One country will do something, then that'll just become the normal, and then another country will move forward. At some point, this is going to happen. And as soon as the North Korean troops enter this conflict in Ukraine, I don't see any argument that anyone has to stop the Ukraine, to just take the safety catch off Ukraine and say, right, Ukraine, here's all the weapons, shoot whatever you guys want. And we already know how Putin's going to react. We already know what he said. We already know the rhetoric. We already know what's happening. Guys, neither of these sides are looking like they're about to enter peace negotiations. Neither of these sides are looking like they can enter peace negotiations. Remember, Donald Trump said that he's going to stop the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. I don't see how that can happen. If either, how is he going to stop it? The only thing that the United States can do realistically is pull funding. That's all they can do. If they pull funding from Ukraine, then the European Union will have to put their big boy pants on, and they will have to fund this conflict, because it's gone on for too long. It's gone on to a situation now where a loss for the Ukrainians, in the context that, the Russians push up to the Dnipro. And guys, I will come on to this, because this could happen in a matter of days, or a loss for Russia, which would mean, balkanization of Russia, and a loss for the Ukrainians would mean, the end to NATO. It would mean the end to the European Union. It would mean an absolute collapse in the euro. It would mean a collapse in the US dollar. So while we're all waiting for these next strikes to move forward, this tactical tiptoe is happening. So from another article, same news outlet, Romania planning law to shoot down drones breaching airspace. In fact, you know what, guys? I will share these both with you, actually, because they are, it's interesting to see how these news outlets are reporting these things. So let's just go to the share screen. So this is the one we just talked about, guys. Poland must shoot down Russian missiles over Ukraine. So Poland's the big one here, guys. Poland's the one with all the, all the weapon system. It's got the biggest budget. It's got the biggest army. They're the ones with the big, the big boots on the ground. So that's one article there. And then we've got this other article from the same outlet. Romania planning law to shoot down drones breaching airspace. Can you remember how many times I've said this, guys? This tactical tiptoe whereby Poland says, oh, guys, we want to shoot down these aircraft. And they say, no, Poland, you can't do that. That's in violation of all these laws, yada, 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 yada. And then Romania quietly passes a law to shoot down drones breaching its airspace. And then Romania starts shooting these drones down. What's that? So that is a cheap Chinese body VTOL drone. These bodies here, you get them from China. I think they're about 2,000 euros. Anyway, slightly off topic. But you see where I'm going with this, guys. You see this tactical tiptoe that happens. One country will want to do something. They'll say, no, it'll be a big thing. We're not violating these airspaces. We're not going to do that. And then Romania quietly passes that law. Once Romania starts doing it, the precedent's open, and then everybody just starts doing it. So the situation now, guys, in Ukraine, it's like, I don't know why more mainstream media articles are not commenting on this, because it's getting to a stage where the only thing slowing the Russians down now in the east of Ukraine, I feel, is the bad weather. So what by bad weather, I mean, the mud. It's difficult to move tanks. It's difficult to move logistics. Remember, the Russians are the invading force. So the Russians need to take everything with them. So they need to take all their people, obviously, all their tanks, all their spare parts, all their ammunition, all their food, all their water, all their, and everything they need to take. And everything they need to take with them, the logistics supply that supplies them with that they need food, they need water, they need ammunition, they need fuel. So the bigger this logistical chain is, the more, the more logistics they need. It's kind of like the tyranny of the rocket equation. So let's just go onto the war map and see what's been happening the last few days in Ukraine. Where are we? There we are. So I think it was the 24th. So this is what it looked like, the front line in Ukraine on the 24th. So you've got the front line. The red area is the occupied areas. The green areas are the liberated areas. Where are we, guys? Where are we looking here? Pokrovs. Remember, Pokrovs is the key city here. Pokrovs has the railroads north and south. It has these two main supply routes out north and south. So Pokrovs is where they're heading towards. Okay, that's the way they're heading towards. Now, I think it was on the 24th. It may have been the 25th or the 23rd, but I think it was the 24th. I did a video and I talked about this town here, guys, Selidov. I said, I've heard it on good authority that Selidov's gone. It's finished. It's not coming back. It's literally overrun. The Ukrainians are retreating. Now, what I also said is, once Selidov falls, there's nothing to stop the Russians now pushing up this corridor to the southern aspect of Pokrovs. So guess what? Since I made that video, let's just fast forward here. So that's the 24th. Let's just fast forward and see what's happened. You can see now, guys. So this is the second. This was yesterday. You can see now the actual, the intent that these guys, that the Russians are pushing up this the Russians are pushing this way. And once they make sufficient ground here, they're going to push north. They're going to push north. And I would say once they've pushed north, I'd say they are 10 kilometers away. They'll hold, and then they'll try and push from the north, pincer Pokrovs, and then that's when the Ukrainians will take huge casualties. How do I know this? Because historically, that's what's been happening in this conflict. The Russians have been, using the pincer movement to great effect. They've been encircling the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have been holding and holding and holding until the last moment. And then at the last moment, there's a huge barrage. And that's when the Ukrainians take most of their casualties in the last couple of days, before a town, before a city, before somewhere falls. So that's what's going on in that aspect, guys. The situation out there, it's just going from one. It's just the Russians are grinding forward. Those of you who've been watching my videos, guys, the Russians are not losing ground. Yes, they've took a slight incursion into the Kursk region, but I actually think that was a double-edged sword for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have to keep logistics there. They have to keep a supply route there. They have to keep manpower there. So that manpower could be used elsewhere. Now, the Russians are just making ground and ground and ground every day. It might be 300 meters. It might be 200 meters. Could be 5. Every day the Russians are making ground. Now, I agree. It's small gains. It's nothing like it's nothing like what we saw in 2022, but the Russians are constantly pushing. They're constantly making ground. They're constantly taking ground. Right now, I think the only thing that is slowing the Russians down is the ground, because the ground's wet out there. It's muddy. It's difficult to try and contextualize. If you live in the United Kingdom, it's really difficult to try and contextualize how big of an agricultural area this is. Imagine a farmer's field, but times 20 that farmer's field. These fields out in Ukraine are absolutely huge now, and there's no roads between these fields. You have to go through the fields. So that means going through the fields. It means traversing a lot of mud. Ukrainians have a high water table, which means it's good for farming and not too good for tanks. So moving heavy machinery or logistics through this location, it's very difficult going on the Ukrainians. It's hard to push forwards, and a lot of heavy going on the Russians, and it's hard to move tanks through these locations. So when you move the tanks through these locations, you get them stuck, and it takes time to pull these things out. Also, the logistics, the logistics tankers, the fuel tankers, these things are not made for off-road combat situations. They're made once the fighting's done. These things are made to follow up the rear on hard metal roads, and that's how you get the logistics support in. So the thing that's stopping the Russians, I think, pushing forwards is the ground. And also the Russians were really burnt in 2022 by overextending themselves and not having that logistical support. So I don't think you're going to see that again. I think the Russians have learned a hard lesson in combat. And I don't think we're going to see a situation where the Russians hold off and the Russians don't push forward. I think it's just going to be a slow grind, a slow day-by-day grind, and they're going to take more and more ground every day until they get to Pokrovsk. When they get to Pokrovsk, I think that's going to be a key moment. I think the Russians are going to look for a multi-pronged attack at some point in and around the election time. Also, I think as soon as the North Korean troops enter this conflict, they're going to be huge, huge situations that change absolutely everything in this conflict. So let's switch fire now to something that I said would happen. Where are we going to go with this? So this is an article from the Times of Israel. In fact, let me just quickly talk about it first, guys. So remember when I said a few videos ago, I mentioned this group that was called, Iranians for Trump. So this group that came out, Ukrainians for Trump. This group, I identified that group and I said, right, guys, this group is going to be really key, and what's happening in the future, because it just stuck out. And I was thinking, why is this Iranians for Trump getting media attention? Well, I'm just going to come straight to the share screen now, guys, because I want to try and keep this video under half an hour. Well, in and around half an hour. Iranian authorities arrest female student who stripped to underwear to protest harassment. Iranian authorities harassment by stripping her to her underwear outside her university, report says. The woman, well, let's just read this actually. In Iran, a student, and again, I said it would start with students. In Iran, a student harassed by her university's morality police over her improper hijab didn't back down. She turned her body into a protest, stripping to her underwear and marching through the campus, defying a regime that constantly controls women's bodies. Guys, can you see the rhetoric now that's building up? These are only things that are poking out in the weeds right now. These are just the little things that are poking out in the weeds. But as we move forwards, and it's looking more and more likely that there's going to be a full-scale invasion, amphibious invasion of Iran, you'll see these things happen more and more, because the more and more rhetoric that will, the more and more rhetoric that's going to go, the more and more rhetoric that's going to build up. That means that, the West are going to be, the West are going to have more appetite, because to the West, the perception will be, oh, look at all these Iranians, these Iranians, they want Western democracy. And I've no doubt a lot of them do. I don't think a lot of the Iranians like living under the Islamic regime that they have, and you will see this become more and more, what's the word I'm looking for? Advertised. I think that's, what I mean. You'll see this become more relevant on mainstream media, and the mainstream media will start to pump this rhetoric about these protests in Iran. You'll see people people having protests, waving the United States flag, asking for military intervention, asking for assistance, asking for people to help, and this will move forwards as we're looking like the United States is looking like it's going to be, more involved in the Middle East, and the United Kingdom will be leading what's left of NATO in the war against the Russians. So what else have we got, guys? So the United States have said that it won't be able to. So the United States have basically come out and said in a warning that they won't be able to restrain Israel, if Iran strikes again. So American B-52 bombers arrive in the region as Israel reportedly identifies initial signs. In fact, guys, I need to share this with you, because what we've got right now is just an absolute world on fire. But if you look at if you go and do a quick search online and you look at breaking news, it doesn't look like there's anything of any relevance happening around the world. But, B-50, well, we'll read it together, guys. US said US said to warn Iran it won't be able to restrain Israel if Tehran attacks again. American B-52 bombers arrive in the region as Israel reportedly identifies initial signs of Iran preparing for attack. Vows strong response even if strike is carried out via proxies. So this situation is going absolutely insane. How many more of these tit-for-tat attacks before somebody, before these people start hitting, before the Iranians start to strike, remember back in after the killing of am I buffering? I think I'm back. But yeah, so there was a situation where basically the long and short of it is the Iranians can do targeted strikes. They can do high profile strikes. Now, I think they've chosen not to do that because the Iranians don't want to drag the region into a bigger war. But I don't think there's any way out of that now. I think, everybody is moving into this situation where the Middle East is going to be dragged into a bigger conflict. Now, those B-52 bombers, if you remember, these are stealth bombers. They struck the targets in Yemen and right under the Iranians' noses. And that was kind of like a two fingers from the United States Air Force, just to say to the Iranians, to say, guys, listen, we know you guys have got air defenses. We know you guys have got some sort of, early warning system, but our B-52 bombers, we can still get in silent and undetected and strike any target that we want. Now, it's really key that these bombers have been moved into this location because I think we're going to see the whole world erupt on or after Election Day. Remember what I've just said, guys, as well. Remember that what I just said about the Iranians. Remember, we're going to start to see protests, pro-Western protests in Iran. Because let's be fair, do we think the Russians and the Chinese and I guess the Russians and the Chinese are the only ones who can pull this off, but do we think the Russians and the Chinese are the only people who conduct ideological subversion? Do we think that they're the only ones who do deception operations via social media? Do we think they're the only ones who fund these diversive groups in countries, these protest groups? No, of course not. The West do that. Of course they do that. It's part of grey warfare, asymmetric warfare, non-conventional warfare, all this sort of stuff that happens behind the scenes. So guys, I'm just going to come on to a couple of your questions and then we're going to finish off with, what have we got? We're going to finish off with just a few things about the US election because it is absolutely insane what's happening out there right now in the United States. Right, hang on. Paid actors in the US. Paid actors in the US boycotting the election. Yeah, so we'll come on to that afterwards, actually, about the US elections. Do you think that the UK air bases will be targeted? I think they're already being targeted. I really do. I think there are people in the United Kingdom, right? Remember what I said about targeting, right at the beginning of the stream. I said right now in the United Kingdom, we will have people scheming, people plotting. Remember, what's his guy's name? The Southport monster. I think I might have closed that page. Hang on. I think I've closed it, or is that it? Yeah. So the Southport massacre, the Southport monster, he had a training manual that was actually called Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrant, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual. I mean, it's very eloquently worded, to be fair. But these sort of training manuals, people will have these in the United Kingdom right now. Now, the problem's not those people who have them it is the problem. But the main problem, I think, is these people coming over on the boats. So if you're going to plan one of these attacks, one of these, these spectacular attacks against, potentially a UK airbase, are you going to recruit people who are already in the United Kingdom, or are you going to recruit people outside of the United Kingdom, train them, give them the knowledge how to create devices? Now, whatever devices you're thinking of, it doesn't really matter, but devices to use against that, airbase, water company, food company, whatever it is, you can train these people outside the United Kingdom, give them the knowledge, give them the experience, give them a time and a date and a location to carry out that act of, let's just call it sabotage, and then say, right, okay, off you go. Get rid of your phone, get rid of any ID, go over on a boat, go over on one of these rubber dinghies. And there's no way that our authorities can stop that. Like these manuals, downloading these manuals, there's electronic trace, there's all sorts of ways that people can identify this. If these people just come here on a boat and then get put up at a taxpayer-funded hotel while they're scheming, while they've got all this information, while they're plotting, you could even send people over one per boat, one per 1,000. You would still have a big number of people who would be coming to the United Kingdom, and they would have this knowledge, they would have this understanding, and they would be able to, conduct these operations without any realistic chance of stopping those acts of sabotage, we'll call them. Hey, buddy. Yes, I'm answering all questions today. I give a bit of a monologue first before we go into the questions, so I do apologize. I hope I answered the question. I hope I answered the question sufficiently. I think there could be a series of recounts and legal battles for many states running for those who know how long. Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that the United States, you just go into one of these voting booths and there's a machine and you just click. Like, what's stopping multiple people in the United States? What's stopping them, all going in and clicking the vote button, clicking that button to say vote, 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 vote? What's stopping them going out? Like, listen to how absurd this is right now. You could go and vote. Because they don't have to show ID, you could go and vote in the United States. You could walk out, change your coat, put a hat on, walk back in and vote again. Because they're not checking for ID. It's absolutely, again, this is my perception of it. I don't know if this is true. I've never voted in the United States. But I saw a post of someone saying, listen, I'm on holiday. There's a voting booth there. I'm going to go and vote. And this was a guy from the Netherlands who just gone into the United States. He was there on holiday. He went in and he just voted because he was there. If this is the case, do we not think that this could be, this has a mass options there for people cheating, for people to rig the vote, for people to, so who wants it most? Are the Democrats or the Republicans? Is everybody cheating? I can remember when I was in the military and we was on the range, we got attached to, we got to do some cross training with the Royal Marines. And for those of you who don't know, there's a massive culture between the Royal Marines and the Parachute Regiment. And I was in support company at the time, and I'd not used a rifle for a long time. And everybody were looking and thinking, oh God, are we going to pass this? Are we going to pass this this live firing test? It was an annual personal weapons test. So I remember sat there. So we said, right, well, let's just all take loads of ammunition and make sure we hit every target. So it came out the scores. Say you had like 10 rounds to get 10 hits. It came out on your lane. It was like lane 4. Out of a possible 10, you hit 24. Because obviously we were cheating. Now, it could get to a stage in the United States where there's actually been more votes than voters. So what are they going to do in that context? Like, can you see how this is just like, it's just turned into an absolute joke? Now, I'll try and put a video to this Carly B in the description to this video, guys, once it goes live. But I'll try and put a video into this. I'll try and, conceptualize how how ridiculous this situation is in the United States. I mean, this, whoever wins the election in the United States, they're going to be the leader of the free world. And we've got a situation where, are we going to have people like Cardi B going out there dictating foreign policy? She is just I don't want to swear, but she's a foul-mouthed, horrible. She's just a foul-mouthed, horrible person. And is this the people our children look up to? Is this the kind of role model our girls have right now? And then we're looking at other people who've endorsed Kamala Harris, like Jennifer Lopez. I mean, let's not forget Jennifer Lopez. One of her decisions was to have Puff Daddy as a boyfriend. Now, that didn't work out right. So we're saying that Jennifer Lopez is a person of good moral, with a good moral compass. It's absolutely insane now, guys. The situation is wild. You wouldn't know it if you looked at mainstream media. You wouldn't know it if you switched on the news. Because these things that are not getting reported are kind of the things that are going to change all of our lives. So from the beginning of this video, guys, we talked about, how we're being gaslit and where do we go with this now? Now, people have been jailed for misinformation. Now, I want to caveat this, guys. I don't know enough about this, the legal situation. I wouldn't be able to comment one way or another on how these people have been sent to jail. But I want to leave this as an open question. Have we got a situation now where people are actually getting sent to prison for misinformation? And if that information then comes out to be true, are those people getting let out of prison, or are we just keeping them in now? Because to me, that sounds very strange. Now, if the mainstream media report on something, I don't know, let's just say that a British Prime Minister comes out and he says a certain medication is safe and effective. And then 3 years' time, it turns out that that medication wasn't safe and it wasn't effective. Would that British Prime Minister then be under the same legislation and be put up to the same, the same scrutiny as other people who've been sharing things online? Remember, guys, if we have a legal system, and I know there are a lot of people saying defund the police. I think that's a terrible idea. But if we're saying, and we're going to say, yes, guys, you know what? We kind of do need a legal system and we do need laws. Then those laws need to be fractal. And by fractal, sorry, guys, I need to take that off. And by fractal, what I mean is those laws, if the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom breaks that law, then he will have the same punishment as if, I break that law. And, I wouldn't recommend breaking any laws because that's what they're there for. They're there to protect everybody. But the problem is we're seeing a selective enforcement of these laws. And that's, and people are sat at home watching this, the selective enforcement of our laws. Now, we talked about, how the countries, and how our politicians just seem to be gaslighting us, telling us one thing. We know something else is happening. And not only are they gaslighting us, but they're sending us to prison for pointing out their gaslighting. Guys, I'll use this. This will be the last comment, and then I will close this down because it's Sunday night and the kids are back at school tomorrow. And it's bath night for me once a month. And, we need to get everything sorted. What are my thoughts on the Spanish floods? So I think we're alluding to here. I think we're talking about people talking about these floods in Spain and the freak weather that we're seeing all of a sudden. Now, the floods in the United States that happened, this was absolutely wild. This went up to like a really high force hurricane. Obviously, when that comes inland, that that always gets downgraded once it makes landfall. There's some people saying that these floods in Spain could be some sort of weather weapon or something. I don't know if there's anything of any military significance there, but if you start messing with the weather, you're going to have consequences that you don't understand. Kind of like in the United Kingdom. You know how we're getting floods all the time in the United Kingdom? Well, it's because builders are buying cheap land. They're buying that, and that cheap land, they're building on it. Now, they're saying, hey, builder, you can't buy that land because it's on a floodplain. The builder's saying, all right, mate, watch me. So the builders are then raising that land 6-10 feet or whatever, until it's out of that path. And then once that floodplain floods, because it's a floodplain, that water then runs off somewhere else. So I would, if we're going down that road, I would suspect if it could be anything to do with that, or I could say this could be a runoff effect of, and again, I'm not saying this is happening, but if some sort of weather manipulation was being used in Florida, this could be a runoff that we're seeing from it. This could be, you know, the backlash of using, I don't know, weather systems, weather manipulation in that region. Guys, just before I go quickly as well, did you all have you guys seen the interview yet with Tucker Carlson when he's talking about demonic attacks? And then like more people are starting to come out now and talk about demonic attacks, and it's absolutely wild. You know, Tucker Carlson, I don't know what to make of it. Tucker Carlson came out and he said that he was attacked by a demon while he was asleep, and while he was in bed. He was in bed with his wife. He was attacked by a demon. He had claw marks on his body, and you know the situation's wild. I saw a clip it from a podcast. I'm still waiting to watch the full podcast. But guys, you know, wild things are happening, and it seems like nobody's telling us what's really happening. And if we point out what's really happening, we get sent straight to the gulag. Anyway, guys, I'm going to cut this live. You guys are fantastic. I'm going to back to grid. I'll get you guys another video later.